there's this weird attitude towards like this like lack of consideration for the emotional well-being of men. Men get a lot of quantitative attention. They don't get a lot of qualitative attention.
Okay.
People who aren't men see men getting lots of attention and they're like, why do you have these problems? You've got all of this attention, but guys aren't necessarily getting the quality of attention that they need, and they don't have the language to ask for it or describe it. And I think that what's frustrating is this idea of like being a man and masculinity and what that looks like impairs the ability to recognize quality attention. It impairs the ability to acknowledge those things. And I think these examples that we have are women saying, try this. This is what you need. And because it's at conflict with being a man, guys have been like, nah, I'm good. None for me, thanks.
It's a red flag.
That's the good thing about getting assassinated. You never know until it's like, until you wake up dead.
Wake up seeing Prince perform, you know. That's how I want to wake up, you know, at a Hendrix concert.
What we were saying last time when Don was on, you just wake up at a Kobe Bryant game.
Like, oh shit, that's pretty good. Chadwick Boseman is at the front. Is at the fuck. What's the thing that they sit on the front line? You know what I'm talking about. That's like 3 different sports went through my head when you said that.
I'm like, are we talking about war? Are we talking about
Yeah.
What is the thing I'm thinking of?
the sideline, courtside?
Yeah.
I get maybe like, you know how like where Ethan Hawke was like flirting with Rihanna, whatever that area of
Courtside.
space is.
It's
Courtside. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh fuck.
Front line. Hey, that's not terribly far off.
That's not far off. I did pretty well, man.
Oh,
I did pretty well.
For a second, I was ready to just roll with it because I know you guys live in the States, and I was like, yeah, that sounds like what they would call it. Like I was just
right on the front line.
right on the front lines.
Pretty visceral, you know.
That's true. It is a warmongering country. That's not inaccurate. Fuck it, let's just go ahead and get into the podcast. That was a great start. Welcome everybody to Waving the Red Flag, the #1 dating and basketball podcast in the universe. It's your boy Eddie. It's Josh. It's Alvin. Joined today by the illustrious, fantastic Mr. Fox. Hit him with some air horns. You know what I'm saying? As is customary. That's true. The Bahamian Toronto man's sensation.
Sleeper Bahamian.
He gets activated when you say certain shit.
Right.
You say curry, goat, and roti right next to each other. Winter Soldier just activated. Boomba!
Everything gonna be Irie, I promise.
Can't fool with the way things got to be.
Oh shit! Bahamian activated. Oh shit! That's Jason Bourne.
Oh god.
Okay. Cool. Well, how are you feeling, Finn? Can I call you Finn?
Feeling pretty
for short?
good.
Is that okay?
Oh yeah, no, please.
Okay, yeah, cool. Fantastic Mr. Fox every time would get kind of tiring, actually. It'd be a lot.
That's what I was going for. I was going to say fantastic Mr. Fox every time I referred to you. Fantastic Mr. Fox.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not going to
Tribe
stop.
Called Quest.
Yeah. Oh fuck. Yo, I just finished watching your Batman is bisexual video, and that shit was good. And as I was watching it, I was like, oh yeah, no, definitely asexual. That's my conclusion, 100%. Like that made sense as the most accurate description of the
Right?
character. Yeah. But it also seemed like a little bit of like it was accidentally the case. Like, you know, when a writer writes something, but they don't know what they're writing, like they don't know what the natural conclusion of the setup of events that they've made is. But the way Batman has been written, it's like asexuality makes the most sense in the mythos they've created. But he's, by default, I would say he's straight. Like the way they write him and the way because he's this male power fantasy or whatever, they're like, yeah, cool, we got to have him fuck some ladies to make it make sense. But it really doesn't make sense with his mythos.
Oh. Bruce Wayne was getting hella tram, but Batman, the actual character Batman, is that the person that we're saying is bi?
Well, I think the argument that Finn made in his video was like,
As if Finn's
Bruce.
not here.
Yeah, right.
Well, Oh well, yeah.
Yes, yes,
oh,
please speak for me.
I'm answering for yeah. Okay, all right, my fault. Yeah, you're right.
Yes, yes.
I actually I like hearing what other people took away. I'm like,
Yeah, because I probably got it wrong. Well, no, you
Yeah,
tell it.
talk
then.
about me. Talk about me.
I
No,
watch
no.
I know Batman. I'm a Batman expert.
You
okay?
do
So,
know Batman. Like let's
But-
let's not sleep on your skills. You do know Batman.
Let's not play with your boy. But all right, Finn, you got it. Yeah, you're the guest on the podcast. I'm here every week. You go.
So basically, my argument is that, like, first of all, Batman doesn't actually have any sexuality because Batman doesn't fucking exist. So Batman is the sexuality of whatever the writer wants him to be at a given time, right? So from that, like, the way people get really defensive, they're like, oh no, Batman, he's a straight man, he's straight, he has to be straight. It's like, well, no, he's whatever the writer wants him to be at any time. When it comes to, like, how he's actually written, so asexuality isn't really, like, super well understood outside of a lot of queer spaces and even within a lot of queer spaces, but asexuality is just a lack of sexual attraction. Like, there can be, you know, asexual people who still have romantic relationships. There's asexual people who still have sex, but they don't necessarily experience, like, sexual attraction. And my argument that I kind of make is that, you know, Batman doesn't experience sexual attraction. So when Bruce Wayne is, and in fact many asexual people will, like, kind of, really many queer people in general will play along in, like, a sort of heterosexual narrative to, like, fit in and just kind of survive in this sort of compulsory heterosexual society that we have, right? So a lot of asexual people do the same thing. So Bruce, the fact that he has lots and lots of sex with women as Bruce Wayne is specifically framed as him performing Bruce Wayne. He's performing the billionaire playboy. So when you remove that aspect of it, who is he underneath? Batman. He doesn't care about sex. He doesn't care about attraction. That's just not really something that's important to him. So my
I'm just
argument
as
is
sexual.
that-
That's what he is.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Yeah.
go
Like
ahead.
that's he is driven by things other than sex, and the sex is a performance so that nobody catches on.
Yep. That's what I was gonna say. But yes,
Word for word, bar for
bar
bar.
for bar. No, but you said it very, very well in that video. Like, yeah, the whole, like, him fucking mad people
lot
is
of fun
like,
with
it
that
seems fake. Yeah, that was good.
And see, because here's the thing: ask yourself the question: would Batman have sex with a man if it meant, like,
For the
achieving
mission?
something in a case that
Absolutely.
yeah, he absolutely would. He performs sex.
If it was the only thing between him and vengeance was butthole, he would 100% dive right in. He would probably has lube in the utility belt, ready to go just in those situations.
I would
Always
say
prepared.
like the only pushback I would have for that, because I think that gets us probably 98% of the way there. There are times where, like, I have read that he was, like, attracted to Selena Kyle, for example,
As Batman.
as Batman and as Bruce Wayne, because they've met as themselves,
both.
like out of costume, like before. So, like, that would be probably the one thing where I would say maybe that throws a wrench into it. But I think, again, like, there are so many iterations of Batman, so many different, like, reformulations, so many different writers, so many different imaginations of that whole character. I would say that what Finn said actually does, to my knowledge, fit about 98% of Batman as we know it.
Yeah, no, that's true. Because there have been several situations where it felt like Batman was, like, overwhelmed by his own sexuality, which is a very non-Batman thing to do. But it's happened where he's, like, fucked somebody that he shouldn't have in a situation where he knew that he shouldn't, but did
Damian's
anyway. And
mom.
that
Yeah.
he was raped in that situation. From what I
Yeah, that
understand.
was it was, yeah. But like Bruce Timm's obsession with, like, shipping Bruce Wayne and Barbara Gordon, that was so weird. Like,
Yes, I was gonna say that definitely
So
seemed like when he fucked. Was she Batgirl at the time, or? But yeah, just
yeah.
when they fucked,
Yeah.
it seemed like
Is that
him
is that
making
canon,
a decision that he
or is
shouldn't
that
have.
or is that just like the fucked up Killing Joke? Because I'm not because I know that like when he
Oh,
fucked Barbara
okay.
Gordon in Killing Joke, that's the animated film, and I don't know if that's necessarily canon because he didn't do that in the actual Killing Joke.
It's technically
Oh,
animated
I see.
series canon. So, like,
Okay.
it's canonical within, like, Batman the Animated Series to Batman Beyond. It's why
Okay.
Dick and Bruce had a falling out.
Gotcha.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Damn. because he fucked one of the mentees. That's crazy, bro. You can't recruit
So-
somebody off the
so
streets
uncomfortable.
into your crime fighting organization and then lay dick on them. That's honestly ridiculous.
It's an abuse of
bother me.
power, and it was his son's
Yeah.
girl-friend too. It's
Oh,
like
that's crazy.
They're so
That's crazy.
no,
That's P Diddy
so
shit.
out
That's
of
fucked
character.
Up. Not my Batman. Not my Batman.
Not my
but
Batman.
my pushback to my pushback to that 2% is like what Finn said at the beginning, which is that it's a comic book, and that's like the Stan Lee philosophy of like whoever would win or whatever would happen is just based on whatever the writer will do. But my view is like sometimes writers write characters wrong or in ways that vary hugely from like the average of what that character's essence is.
Yes.
So sometimes Batman gets written in ways that vary drastically. He kills, or he's stupid, or he's whatever. He's like a little bit different. So that seems like, in general, on average, he seems completely either in control of his sexuality or he manufactures it fakely in order to achieve goals, but doesn't actually feel any arousal to men or women about anything. He's just the epitome of married to the game. Like that's just his whole personality, it seems like.
Yeah.
I also argue his interest in Selena comes from other things. Like it wasn't an attraction and then like, you know, sexual attraction followed by a relationship. It was more like he was really ready to, in, you know, the examples that I can call to mind, to kind of like dismiss her, brush her off, but they developed a relationship over time and then the attraction followed from that.
What's that one where you get sexually attracted, but only after you kind of like fuck with somebody heavy?
Demisexual.
Demisexual. Yeah, maybe he's that one. Yeah.
Is that what that is?
Right?
You thought it was being attracted to Demi Moore, didn't you?
Or demigods, you know, like Thor.
Yeah,
or
yeah,
Loki.
yeah. That's-
Oh,
yeah.
okay,
I
okay.
thought I was a
That is
demigod.
demisexual in that way
You
because he
know,
does
yeah,
like
you know.
Diana and all them. Yeah, that makes sense. Hercules. Okay, I can see that. Yo,
I'm
and
learning so much already.
This is actually gonna be. You should put all this on your resume. This is actually very useful knowledge in the world. You know what I'm saying? It's a transferable
Put this
skills.
in Chat GPT. You know what I'm saying? Like put that shit
Absolutely.
in there. When you know.
Batmology.
Batman's sexuality.
Yep. I am an expert in the field of. Let's see. Topics. Do we got any picks, guys?
Hawks going to the Eastern Conference Final.
Oh yeah, front lines. Got some frontline tickets. Nice.
Bet the
I'd
over,
also-
bet the over on the Hawks game. Bet the over on the Hawks game.
Okay, we'll do. Is that?
What's it like when male privilege starts kicking in?
Oh, true. Well, I had that one off birth. But then again, I don't know. Like, well, yeah. Then what do you think?
We're not happy. So that's a really interesting one. I've actually kind of like moved away from talking about male privilege as male privilege, like only because it's so. I don't think it really does the complexity of like gender justice, and there's also the fact that it's like, yeah, did I notice a significant amount of male privilege? Absolutely. I'm, like an able-bodied white guy. It was really like, bam, good job, like
Yeah.
there it is. But for friends of mine who transitioned and are black or Latino, they noticed like as soon as they started being perceived as men, they started being perceived as really dangerous. Like suddenly, suddenly they needed to be aware of their safety in a different kind of way than they did before.
Sure.
So just with that caveat, like it's really the more subtle ways, like the little social interactions, where it really, really starts to change, are like people stop interrupting you as much. I still get interrupted. That's normal. That's conversation. But people will just, if you're being read as female, they speak right over you. They like act like you're not even there. You're always kind of the last person to be asked your opinion in a group conversation. I remember one time one of my cousin's friends came in and, he was greeting everyone in the room and he like shook the hand of every guy, looked at me, did not say anything, did not just looked right, like past me immediately after, and then finished greeting the men and then kind of looped back around to me. It was so weird. Like
Get you
that
at the
kind of
Barack
thing.
Obama like.
Yeah, I was just thinking
And
like the Key
it
and
was-
Peele.
yeah, Key and Peele, yeah. Yeah, not man. Okay, and moving on. Yeah, hello.
Yeah,
hello.
it was like lots of that. People think that they can just kind of touch you, like they think that they can just give you a little tickle on the side or something.
when
or,
you're
like,
when you're not
touch your-
perceived as a man.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. They really
Or
like to get in your
not.
space. When you're
Or
not Like when you're being like when you're read as a woman,
Gotcha,
people are
gotcha.
there's this like weird kind of entitlement towards your body that's really kind
Gotcha.
of weird and creepy. And yeah, all of that went away, and it was really, really kind of night and day when it did. Very noticeable.
Yeah.
It's interesting that you pointed out the ways that like being perceived as a man comes. Yeah, because and I agree. Like we've talked about this on the pod that I think sometimes some of those buzzwords that were good for the purposes of communicating an idea to other people who already understood the nuance of the idea of what was being described were good, but now terms like male privilege or toxic masculinity don't do a good job of conveying the whole all the nuance of it, because you add maleness to blackness and you get a recipe for being perceived as dangerous, being perceived as a threat, that kind of thing. Did you notice any drawbacks at all, or was it mostly just like, I'm a white man now, this is actually pretty fucking good, I've got all the benefits, or was it like it's like fun like Thanos with the fucking Infinity Stones, like
got all the benefits.
reality is whatever I make it.
I have had a couple moments where I like almost just kind of forget a little bit about who I am, and I'm like, just when I'm thinking about the world and how it affects other people, and the things that we need to do to fix that, and doing that kind of like thought experiment of like, if you take yourself as you are and put yourself in any like past timeline, what does life look like for you? Like, what does life look like for the people around you? What do we need to work on? And I'm like, yeah, so like as a white guy, if I were to go back to, oh shit, I'm trans. Like, and I have that. I'm like, yeah, if it were the 50s, I'd be. And then I'm like, wait a second.
That's hilarious.
Pump your brakes.
So I kind of
Motherfuckers
forget.
inventing a time machine and
Oh my
forgot,
God.
like, whoa, buddy, slow down.
They was stoning
It ain't
me
finna
back
be
in
what
the
you-
day. Like,
It ain't finna be what you think it is. Oh shit, yeah, that's good.
So it's like, so yes and no. Like, yes, there are definitely some perks. The drawbacks, there's this weird attitude towards like, I can't even say men in general. I guess I've just observed this. This like lack of consideration for the emotional well-being of men, and like having people kind of care about my emotional state, and then having people just suddenly not care about my emotional state. That was definitely a loss. That was definitely a loss. And then there's that, because like, guys, a lot of men don't really learn the language and the emotional skills to kind of talk about their feelings, so they get frustrated, and then when they want to be heard, they're like, my feelings raw, and they like kind of freak people out.
Yeah.
So it gets to the point when you try to bring them up as someone who maybe does have the language, who has been working on that, for people who aren't men, their guard is up. As soon as they hear male feelings, they're like kind of ready to fight about it, and it's that's been weird. That's been hard to adjust to, for sure.
Yeah, I guess it would be a little bit of a like. Have you found? So if you're in a position to where you previously, when you weren't seen as a man, you had people valuing your emotions in a particular way. Now they don't, but you do have the language to be able to go like, wait, no, I'm a full person. I without exploding. Do you feel like that results in people like being like, oh, okay, like, we can have that conversation, or are they still just completely blinded by like, you're a guy, your emotions are dangerous, if I'm understanding what you just said?
I've run into both. I've definitely run into both, but I have run into a lot more willingness to listen, and I think that comes less from. So I think it comes from the fact that I know what it's like to experience the power imbalance of like an angry man, and like I'm not even gonna say, because I've said this before, like I was never a woman. I was more like an undercover male agent, like living in many ways like being perceived as a woman, but I never like internalized any kind of like idea of myself as female, because I'm not like that. I was running the wrong software for the hardware that I have. Let's go with that. So,
but you never bought into the way that others perceived you. Like, you were aware, okay, they perceive me as this, but it never felt like, oh, that is.
It was always incongruent. Yeah, it was always, it never really fit. So I didn't necessarily have a female experience. So I can't really speak to what it's like to be a woman fully. Just read is one. And so, but I do know what it's like to have to be aware of my safety being surrounded by people who are generally bigger and stronger than I am. So I do know what it's like to kind of have to be responsible within rape culture. I'll put it that way. And so when a man raises his voice and is expressing volatile emotions, when you're someone who has like kind of had this training of having to like be on guard and protect yourself and don't let yourself be victimized, because that's how it's usually framed, very kind of victim blamey. It's really, really fucking scary. It's like, it's really, really jarring. It's your guard is really up. You're not in a great listening space. So of course, like if a guy's getting volatile and trying to express his feelings and you're afraid, you're not going to hear him, because of course not. So because I know what it's like to experience that fear, I think that like when I'm in a situation where I'm speaking to someone who, isn't a man specifically, I kind of know how to mediate myself and my tone so that I can get through to them and express the fact that I'm like having this struggle and I'm feeling this pain, but without making them feel like at any second I could attack them or hurt them in some way, because they've had to be aware of that possibility.
Does that feel like a rarity among guys? Like when you see other men emoting, does it feel like, are you catching yourself, or are you like starting from, because I've caught myself, and I think probably every guy has been like, look, I'm just saying, oh fuck, okay, sorry. I feel when you like, and you do that catch of like, oh fuck, I'm being scary, like, are you catching yourself? Are you starting from a better spot? Are you contrasting yourself from the way you see other men expressing themselves, or like, what does that look like?
I think little to column A, little to column B. I've definitely had a couple moments where I'm like,
I'm glad I'm not arguing about myself here.
oh yeah, no. I mean, we're human, right? Like everybody gets mad. That's the other problem with all of these like wild gender dynamics, is that everyone gets angry. It's a pretty normal human feeling. So no, I would say that like and it's interesting because when I first was transitioning, I was like, as a trans man, like, because I grew up with the trans experience, and so now I have this understanding of masculinity and blah blah blah. And I think that that's part of it, sure, but I think it's largely where my understanding of like manhood and what being a good man looks like is actually my dad. Because when I think about it, like all of the masculinity, like all of the messaging that I was internaling came from my dad and his dad, who are both like patient, calm,
Your granddad?
like very well, my grandpa was he was an amazing dude, amazing person. Never saw him yell at anyone, raise his voice, get angry in my life. He was an incredibly lovable, and not because he was like, I was lucky. I was lucky.
Motherfuckers from World War like One, and he was just like, oh nope, yep, I'm calm, not a problem.
That's probably because he's been through some shit. Like, he made it out
You
on
think
the other
so?
side. Like those are like normally like the best people, like the people who have like been through some shit, seen some shit, and it's like they grow through it and just become an overall better person.
Yeah, I like that language, to grow through it. I think some people are confronted with really, really awful things and they kind of dig their heels in and then they get stuck there. And I get it, because I mean, trauma sucks. It's awful.
Yeah.
But those people, like people who are confronted and, as you said, grow through it, tend to be the most grounded people.
Do you figure that I mean, this to everybody, but like, do you figure that trauma in general? Because I'm like I don't tend to agree with like what doesn't kill you makes you stronger type of thing. I'm like, it usually just completely fucks you up and makes it difficult for you to live in the world. So like, some people I think grow through it, but I don't think most people do. I think most people end up nightmares from living through some crazy shit.
I think I got
Venn
better.
diagram.
I think I got better at the expense and great effort of others, but I think I got better through trauma. Like I feel like my traumas made me stronger, but I think I don't think I did that myself. Like I don't think I pulled myself past that trauma to a point where I feel like I'm okay. Like alone, I think it was at the expense and Herculean efforts of other family members, like my community, like lots of friend groups. Like I think I was fortunate in that respect. So I do think it made me stronger, but I think that took a lot of heavy lifting from a lot of people, and it wasn't just me.
You know what? I got something to piggyback on top of that too. Like,
Hop on.
is it that it makes us stronger, or is it that it makes us more equipped to deal with this toxic ass society that we live in? Because I went through some traumas. Like,
Yeah.
my big brother traumatized the fuck out of me when I was little.
Oh,
Like, called me all sorts of shit, and just
right.
traumatized me.
And you were
But
little-ish.
It toughened me up. No, I was little. Like, I was little. Like,
Right. Didn't have no
growing
tools
up
to incorporate.
through adolescence, and and but it made me tougher. And now I can't even fucking cry. Like, if I really need to, like, it's not easy for me to cry if I really feel the need to. So, and
I
just
feel like
it
it's prison shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember who it was who said, and I'm paraphrasing here, but our job isn't to raise children who are prepared for a cruel, tough world, but to raise children who will make the world a little cruel and tough in the first place. Something.
Say that
something
the last
to
bit
that
again.
effect.
It sounded like a bar, didn't it?
It did, but wait, but
That,
the second part I think I maybe misheard because it sounded wild. What was the
I
second
said-
bit?
I said that our job is to raise children who will make the world a little less cruel and tough in the first place.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I missed
Maybe I
the
said it
last
wong
part,
the
and
first
I was no, you did.
I might not have
I heard
said
what
it.
you heard. I heard what you heard, Eddie, and I was like,
I
who
might
said
not
that,
have
Churchill?
said it.
Oh,
I was like,
vicious
that
children.
shit, that shit sounded like some Spartan shit. Like, our job is not to make children who are capable of withstanding a cruel world. It is to make children who will make a crueler. And
That shit's in fucking
shit, weird.
Machiavelli or some shit. I guarantee you.
I'm glad you caught that and it didn't go up like that, because like if I didn't say less, like that's the operative word.
you did.
I was
You
like,
actually
damn,
did.
this guy's a beast. Oh shit. Okay.
I actually heard you. Like, you said it, but
I mean, it still could have been a bar. I'm thinking about that.
It was. It sounded good.
That Genghis Khan quote that everybody like the soccer players have like tattooed on
Oh,
them. Like,
how's it go?
and again, I'm paraphrasing, but it's like it's like, I am the wrath of heaven. If you had not been so sinful, then heaven would not have sent like a wrath like me upon you.
Ooh, I like that. It sounds good.
Jeez.
It sounded
That's
good.
what I'm saying. It's a
I
I
bar.
might start
Like,
quoting what
a
Finn said, but just the wrong
rapper
way.
is saying, a rapper is saying both of those things. You know what I'm saying?
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
yeah.
I
I'm
don't know.
trying to make kids that are adding cruelty to this shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, I thrive off negativity type shit.
My children will be destroyers of worlds. Like, oh, all right,
my
I guess
children
so.
gonna be
Yeah,
the realest niggas ever.
yeah.
That's
glad I could come
that's
on
the
here
way
and
I'm trying to go with it.
spread the message of evil.
Some positivity. That's great. Thanks.
Spread the gospel.
We thought he was a teenage mutant ninja turtle. Turns out he was shredded the whole time. Oh shit.
That would be such a long game.
Yeah.
That would be some really impressive villain level shit.
I could see somebody just like being like a positive YouTuber for just like so they could wait until they get to 1 million subscribers to be like, actually, I'm fucking evil. I'm the most alpha male podcaster ever.
Okay.
And they start. I'm going to tell you how I really feel.
It sucks because at any point I could be like, oh yeah, I'm actually like, I made a mistake and I can't detransition. I just have to live like this, and I could like fake, like just say like I'm not actually trans, and I could just lean into the conservative grift and make so much money. But the problem is I care about people and I don't lie. So
It seems like there's so much
here I
money in
am.
that, like, and I definitely don't like fully understand what the fuck is going. Like when I look at like a Blair White, like that one, she seems like somebody that's like super famous in that like on some pick me trans vibes.
She's our Candace Owens.
Okay, that's what it seems like. That was my
Yeah.
understanding. So
I like that.
what is the I'm trying to figure out how she even fits into like the conservative, like, because it seems like they're like, oh yeah, come on board to say what, like how do they even make that work? You know what I mean? To go, yeah, the rhetoric that you're saying that doesn't delegitimize your own identity, but delegitimizes other people's identity is one that we want to like say thumbs up to.
I don't know. It's I'm trying to think of the best way to describe it. It's honestly kind of parasitic. It's this like weird, it's a survival thing. I know it's a survival thing. I know that, people who are otherwise like a marginalized person who kind of play into like cis heteropatriarchal white supremacy are doing so to survive within it. because it's risky to dismantle it. Like, it's risky to try and confront it. It's risky to take it on. So they would rather be one of the good ones than take that risk with everyone else who is like trying to deconstruct those things.
Off the internet, that seems like it makes sense, but on the internet, it seems like it's flipped almost. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, it seems like there's money. That's just money. Like,
Yeah,
Blair,
it's money.
Pearl,
Yeah.
Candace, they're not like, if anything, they're taking a risk the other direction because everybody within the community is like, yo, fuck you, you're selling out for money. So it's like, it's risky to go that way, but they're just like, yeah, I want the clout. Like, I know I can blow the fuck up off this.
Well, money and influence are power. So as long as like that's how you get power, then they're doing fine.
Yeah, and they're good with it. What did you mean about, because you obviously were talking about like a joke hypothetical of somewhere along your creator career of like where like if you said something about detransitioning that I was curious about. What did you say?
Oh, just like at any point I could say that I'm detransitioning and get like a whole bunch of money and support and publicity. Like I could very easily do that.
To say, oh, this whole thing is a mistake, and actually,
yeah.
okay. Pull the letter.
It'd be
up
like
from behind
becoming
you.
like you know, early 2000s atheist YouTuber was like, I've seen the light, I found God, and then
Right.
you could make a whole bunch of money, right? It'd be kind of like doing that.
True. Yeah, and I guess it also it sounds even better coming from somebody who's like, oh, I believed it, and then you can make just shit tons by being
Fully
like,
committed, yeah.
yeah, I've seen the other side, and let me tell you, no, it's not a go.
What about that? Oh my God, yeah, you really could. Because like every
We're making the villain origin story right
I
now.
know,
Like, we're
yeah,
giving him
yeah.
instruction
You're
on it.
gonna-
You're about
we
to
got you.
you finna blow up after this podcast. We're gonna make you.
Before we get too far from it, I don't think you need to go through trauma to grow. I'm gonna just agree with that before we get too far away.
Yeah.
Let's that be immortalized on the internet.
And you don't need to raise your children to be cruel and vicious, but you can, but you don't need to.
You can't. I'd recommend not doing it, but like, I mean, I guess yes, you can.
Yeah, I'm gonna.
Hey,
raise
come on
mine
this
to be
podcast
fucking
one time, and you
beasts.
guys are like, "Here's your villain arc. Let's go."
that's what we do. I don't know.
That's yeah. We try to leave everybody worse off than we found them, ideally, if we can. That's
That's part of
bit of
waving
a-
the red flag.
exactly. Yeah. What were you gonna say, Josh? Because I was gonna make a trauma point.
Honestly, I can't even remember. So please,
Yeah.
Oh, I'm
I was
so
gonna
sorry.
say
no, you good.
about what?
Because I interrupted.
Nah, that's the name of the game, baby. That's what
He
it
flexed
is.
his
You know what I'm saying?
patriarchy on me. You know what I'm saying? He's flexing
Damn,
that male
he
privilege on you.
that
boy, you know what
white
I'm saying? Like, he operating with the best of them.
He got too much. He got too much dip on his shit. He was like, "I'm a white man. That power's activated."
I do the interrupting
Everybody.
now.
Yeah.
Fingo start hitting people with the "well, actually, sweetheart," like mid conversation.
I felt it like in my spine. I was like, "Ooh, it's still there."
My idea was that like I feel like this like trauma being a way that strengthens you to be able to deal with a world that is likely to give you more trauma or more maybe abuse in that same fashion is like prison like it's what prison does, which is like being in prison makes you really good at being in prison, but it does, I don't know if it's right to say it makes you like grow. Like you'll be really good at being in prison, but once you're not, so if you go through trauma, war, neglect, abuse at the hands of others and loved ones, it makes you good at keeping yourself safe when those situations repeat, but it doesn't necessarily make you well equipped for like situations where people aren't attacking you, aren't name calling you, aren't neglecting you, aren't trying to harm you and shit like that.
I think
So
I think
I don't know what the answer to that is, but
I think for me, I think it's very specific, right? So like
Okay.
I think of like the fact that like my mother was completely hands off and basically was my mother in, you know, in name only past like 10, 11, like put me in a situation where like I had to figure shit out, and I think figuring shit out is an adaptive trait outside of like the trauma that like emotionally like that left on me. I think the emotional trauma aspect of it is what I spoke on, that like I had to kind of deal with the help of like community and like my sisters and all that kind of stuff. Like in my current state, right, I don't feel like I lacked a maternal figure, for example, right?
because you
Like,
have some.
Yeah, like I had my sisters. Like I feel like, oh, my sisters were there, and I think like there's the other aspect of like feeling at various points in my life, even shit fairly recently, how there's the guilt of like what I took from them and their childhood, having to be children, raising another child. But like I think that the stuff that I got out of it was like, oh, my mother wouldn't take me to school, and like I had to have like a 3-hour MARTA trip, and like how that like forced me to like schedule and like get shit done. You know what I'm saying? Like it's more practical apps than what I think a lot of people like really consider about like the struggle aspect of it, or like money management, time management, perseverance, working within the system, because I definitely had to do all that shit. Like, so I feel like there's a lot of stuff that I learned in terms of kind of the quote unquote street smarts aspect of what that put me into, that I think has a practical application outside of what I think a lot of people think of when they think of trauma, which is usually like the emotional impact of it. And I 100% had that emotional impact, but I think that that's the part that like I had to work within a lot of a lot of like context to get through. And I think the practical stuff is what strengthened me.
Right. Yeah, no, that makes sense. If you've got a particular kind of neglect and you have to be strong, that gives you a bunch of tools to where it's like, yeah, you're 18, 19, but you've got the ability and wherewithal to move through the world like you're, 30 or whatever. I guess my question would just be, do you think that there's anything lost in having to be that? And like, yeah, maybe you're
100%.
And so I'm
Like,
wondering, and I don't just mean like lost as a child, but like lost to the adult version of yourself, if that distinction makes sense.
To the adult version of me, no. To the child me, yes.
Yeah.
I think like there's a lot of stuff that like I think children should have as much time as they need to be children, and I think a lot of children don't have that time, for various reasons. So I do think that that's something that you can't get back and that is lost. But I do think that like the adult me like has found ways to semi fill that in. You know what I mean? It's like it's like certain kind of repairs, right? Like if you like weld something, like it may not be as strong as like the initial cast, but it's welded.
I like that.
And do you think it's because when we're talking about Finn's grandfather, we were talking about like, well, we were joking obviously, but we're talking about like the war maybe made him see shit in a way that put shit in perspective, like capability and like empathy, gentleness, those kinds of things seem like those are kind of almost like different kinds of skill sets. Do you think that the stuff that you went through, Alvin, made you like purely just tougher, or did it also make you able to like care for others in a different type of way?
So I will say that there's a lot of things that like I say especially high school, because I went to what I would say is probably the more well-to-do like black high school, like in the Atlanta area. So like what I found is that like a lot of times they didn't have empathy for the fact that like I was like just vastly poorer than a lot of these people. I mean, like it would be very awkward about like, oh, well, can't your family just do this? I'm like, absolutely fucking not. So I do think that I'm a lot more cognizant, especially because like at various points, like I've worked with, with people who were poor. I've worked with children. I've been a lot more empathetic in terms of the plight of financial hardship and like what that can do to you and like what that looks like, and also just the point where like your pride comes into play. I think I can navigate that a little bit better than a lot of people because I've been there. So I do think ultimately that's basically a long-winded way of saying that I do think I have a level of empathy in a lot of contexts that I don't think I necessarily would have had otherwise.
And that's the growing through it.
That's the growing through it.
Yeah.
That makes sense. No, that makes a lot of sense. Finn, you before you kind of hinted at something that was like in the topic list of like the men that you looked up to that sort of formed your concept of what masculinity looked like, and it seemed like you were hinting at that model of masculinity that you got from your dad and your dad's dad was maybe a bit progressive or a bit healthier is maybe the idea. And did that feel, I guess, just tell me about what that was like.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Didn't know how to ask that question, but just tell me your thoughts, your feelings. And
What are the vibes? I don't. Yeah.
Right.
You want to do that one again, Edward? You want to like try?
Nah,
it again?
I don't. I
Another
don't.
take.
Yeah, fuck it, you know.
I don't. Yeah. Nah, I've been recognized as a man since birth, so my emotional skills are terrible. So that's it's not. No.
Something,
I look.
something that
All things considered, I did a pretty good fucking job, honestly. I think. All right.
Give us the vibes. That's basically what it boils
Hit us with the
down to.
vibes. Just give us your trauma. Like we done our trauma bits. Like just hit us with some trauma, whatever. You know.
I mean, I could give you the trauma telling, but to answer like the masculinity question and like kind of what was modeled for me, definitely progressive, definitely very like kind of calm, patient, very openly loving. Because I mean, it gets back to that whole thing that if like experiencing trauma prepares you for trauma, what does experiencing love do, right? Like,
Okay. Yup.
but
That's good.
The thing.
That's good.
The thing about it that I think is, you know, kind of hitting me more as an adult and I kind of navigate the world is the kind of men that I look up to, the kind of men that I have surrounded myself with as peers, all meet that archetype that was laid out for me. So it's not just about me embodying it in myself. It's like, what masculinity do I notice in other people? Because that is what I was taught. Like, this is what being a man looks like. So when I think of, you know, the men that I admire, the men that I look up to, they all kind of fit into that because it's like that's the salient image of what a man is to me, which is one of the, I guess, like lesser named benefits of kind of how it was modeled.
Is being able to identify it in others and seek community out that replicates that.
Yep. Even like favorite
Yeah.
characters and stuff.
Oh, true. Yeah. Even able to identify, like, oh, this is what I already recognize. What did Alvin just think of? Hold on.
Yeah,
what
I'm
was that?
wondering the same.
My favorite. You may have to bleep this one, Eddie, but I'm still gonna say it.
Okay.
So like my favorite like superhero is Tony Stark, and my dad's a recovering drug addict. So it's just like all that modeling behavior is just
You're like,
no.
oh, I did not know that about myself.
Damn.
So sorry.
I'm just like I'm
That's
fucking
hilarious.
learning shit. You see, it's,
Right. We're all learning tonight. Thank you. Man.
Oh shit!
also a very fun.
Alvin's dad
he
was able to
very
do this
fun-
in a cave with a box of crack. Sorry,
He was a very fun like alcoholic too, like just like Tony. You know what
yeah.
I'm saying? Like
he was
very
charming. I bet.
happy-go-lucky.
Yeah,
Yeah, he was a very charming alcoholic. You know what I mean? So
that's low key pretty true. Pretty much all the men in my family are also very charming drug addicts in some way or another. So yeah, and Tony Stark is definitely up
Wow.
there. Tony Stark and
My-
Batman is definitely up there. Yours
My
too?
biological dad too. Yeah. Like, yo, that's crazy.
Very
that's,
nice.
That's the thread that's binding us all together. That's
That's why
the
we're all
way-
yeah, trauma bond besties.
Yo,
Oh, fuck.
that is hilarious.
we all just open up the same thing of alcohol and go like, smells like dad. It smells like home.
I tell you.
There's a band name right there, Trauma Bond Besties.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. That might be the name for our supporters.
Ooh, trauma bond besties. That's
Yeah.
actually pretty good. Yeah, that's actually pretty good. I'm gonna write that down. The trauma bound. Okay, let's see.
Oh, but I did want to kind of like jump into that too because I think that's a very interesting topic. Like, if you really break it down, like who do you get your masculinity from? Like where is that derived from? Like how was that sculpted? Because a lot of this stuff is learned behavior, and for me, I got a lot of the masculinity, my coolness from my stepdad. And as much as I was like, yo, my brother traumatized me, like I still got a lot of some of my masculinity, like what I thought was cool from him. Because like I looked up to him, like, you know what I mean? Like even though like I'm like, damn, like this nigga really don't like me at times, you know what I'm saying? But like I still looked up to him and like I took things from him that I liked and wanted to incorporate into myself. And of course, like, and then you mix that into like, you know, what you see on TV and also what just feels right within your own self. Because like everyone still has their own sense of identity. We're just kind of like feeling it and like taking like different like bits and pieces of what we see and just amalgamating it into our own being, like as we grow and evolve.
Do you think you've kept all of those things? Or like, have there been things that you've shed or been like, oh, actually, no, I still, even though I kind of took this from somebody who kind of hurt me, that bit actually is something I want to keep and cultivate?
Yeah, because like I said before, it's not tonight, but like it's kind of like a supermarket, like the supermarket analogy. Like you go to the store, but you don't buy everything in the store. Like you don't pick up every single thing you see. You just take what works for you.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so I keep the parts that work, and through therapy, shed some of the other shit that might have been done unto me, and like might have framed my own thinking about myself in a negative way or whatever. You know what I mean?
I love that so much because it really emphasizes the autonomy in it all. Like, because I think there is this idea of like, what was modeled for me, and then you have these cardinal traits, and that's who you are for the rest of your life, and it's just not true. Even stuff that you were exposed to at a really, really, really young age that was really pivotal for you, like you don't have to keep that. You do not have to keep that if it's not something that works for you. And it also, emphasizes the fact that every single person you interact with is a complicated human being. Like every single person is going to have really awesome traits that you would love to emulate, and then things, like Tony Stark's a great example. In fact, I think superheroes in general tend to draw people in because they're so flawed. Because they have these incredible abilities, and we really look up to them, and it's like, wow, imagine if I could do that. But then they're made human again by all of these incredibly just like human characteristics, their mistakes, their flaws, the things that they struggle with. Yeah, I like that. I like that kind of nuanced take on being a person and keeping what works and discarding what is harmful.
And Finn did that video. I forget the name of it because my memory is trash. Eddie, help me out.
Something about dudes. I don't even remember what the fuck it was.
Something about dudes.
It was some dude shit. It was hold on.
And about the dudes.
Won't somebody?
Some dude
It's
shit
kind
sounds
of
like it was about skateboarding and like it just,
well, kind of in a way. I mean, in a way, everything is about skateboarding. In a way,
Well, yeah.
it's actually kind of a.
they were lifting weights, like surfing,
pumping
just, like,
iron.
typical
There
dude
was a
shit.
red pill on the beach somewhere. I don't know.
It was girls, babes everywhere. We were shooting guns, just smoking cigars, just some dude stuff. That's how you should start all your videos, Finn. Just like crazy rock metal music.
Yeah, right.
On some Dan Bilzerian shit, smoking a cigar. Welcome to the Dudecast. It's fantastic, Mr. Fox. We're raising kids for cruelty.
Oh yeah, your villain arc is about to be fully fleshed out by the
Oh
time
man, we
get
make
off
it
this
all
recording.
his masculinity toxic. I'm
Fantastic,
sorry.
Mr. Fox After Dark.
Yeah, there you go.
Or uncut. Oh shit, that's good. It was somebody think of the men.
Detour.
Yes, I want somebody to think of the men while the manosphere designer feel like. Yeah, I really, really loved your takes in that video. Because for one, like it's very nuanced, and to bring attention that yes, because okay, I got so many thoughts around it, but
It was so many bars in that one. I'm not
Yeah.
gonna, like the first 7 minutes was crazy. Yeah.
yeah, because even the intro was like, ladies, I'm sorry, but if you feel like triggered or if like things don't
Skip
resonate
to the end.
with you, skip to the end. But it's also not for you, and that's because you of course you don't understand because you haven't. Like it's such a peculiar place to be in when you understand the damage that men have done to women, to the LGBTQ community, cis men have done to everybody, whatever. You understand that damage, but at the same time, we also need to speak to those men and heal these men ourselves also, because we're still operating on the same planet, interacting with all the same people, and when you do try to help and speak life into this group of cis men who are perceived as just evil, or these are my oppressors, these are my abusers, these are the people that hurt me on a day-to-day basis, these are the people that's harassing me every day. You get a lot of flack for it. You open yourself up to receive flack, but you have to have those conversations because, if we don't have those conversations, we're not creating an actual healthy space for these men to grow into or to create better human beings.
Yeah.
Right, they're not going anywhere, and they're just going to keep on getting funneled into the quote unquote the red pill, the more toxic, the more misogynistic shit. These modern bitches. You know what I'm saying? All that rhetoric. So yeah, just to commend you on what I saw from that from the work that you're doing. So appreciated that.
Oh,
Yeah,
thank you.
very
I'm really glad to hear that. And I appreciate that came across because I have, talking about this stuff, there is, and I understand where it comes from when people react and they're
Yeah.
like, you're putting it on like the oppressed to like educate their oppressors. And it's like, no, I'm putting it on a community to recognize that everyone is part of it. Like it's more that. And so it's not, you don't have to engage with anyone who has hurt you at any point ever. Like you're not obligated to do that, but it's like, I don't know, random analogy, maybe this will help. If you buy a house and you walk in and it needs a whole lot of work, are you just going to stand there like, well, the people who had this house before me are the ones who smashed it up and made a mess, so like this isn't my problem? Like, no, you live there now, you got to clean it up. Like if you want to live in a nice space, you're going to have to put the work in, even if it's not your fault that it's shitty in the first place.
Oh my God. The analogy I always use is like we're all in a burning house together and people are arguing about whose parents set the fire, and we're like saying to the fire department, no, don't come in. Or the fire department can't find the fucking fire hydrant and we know where it is, and we're like, no, I'm not going to tell you. You should know. You're the fire people, aren't you? It's like, oh man, we're burning alive. Like, well, come on.
I think my only thing with that is that I ultimately agree. I just think that a lot of people over-index on the internet when they say that kind of stuff and like disregard the history of the fact that, despite the fact that there's this like internet rhetoric of like exactly what Josh said. Like if I go on TikTok right now,
Yes.
and somebody has this conversation and it's a woman, it's going to be exactly what Josh said. It's going to be a lot of comments about like, oh, you care too much about your oppressor, that kind of situation. And it's like, I can just think of so much historical context where like women have like tried to do the work to fix men. They have done the work to try to fix men that were literally their abusers. I'm thinking about like how the women of the Black Panther Party like protected them through all this bullshit.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about like and when I hear that kind of stuff, the one thing like recently, because the way she's handled it has like I think has been like heartbreaking to me, because I think she's been so powerful throughout the whole situation. It's like FKA Twigs and Shia LaBeouf situation, right? And I know that's still going on, but like the fact that she was like, we don't even have to get into this. We don't even have to like put this out there. I want you to get help. If you go get help, we don't have to
It
go
ain't
to
even
court.
about me. Yeah.
Is effectively what she said, right? And like this motherfucker was like, no, I'm just not gonna do that shit. You know what I mean? So I
with
think
that.
yeah, I think we have this thing where we over-index on like, well, nobody cares about the men, where it's like, no, motherfucker. Like we have decades and decades and decades and decades and decades and decades of like
Millennia.
history that says that the oppressed have put the men like in situations to like do this, and like men have like said like, no, I'm just not gonna do that shit in a lot of cases. Now, where I find solidarity with the point is that ultimately, like, I think that we have strayed away from that kind of thinking in probably the last 20 years. And I think in, say, the last 20 years is what's probably been most needed, right? Like, I know, like, the conversation we had with the Suburban Boys for me was very eye-opening, right? Like, we have, like, a lot of, like, guys who, like, have not been socialized in the same way. So, like, a lot of where they're getting their socialization is the internet, right? So, like, they don't have, like, this counterbalance on, like, you know, the historical context and, like, the real-world interactions at the same measure that even younger millennials would have. So, I do think that it's an important conversation. I just think that we need to be very careful on how heavily we index on what the internet is saying before we disrespect the fact that, like, women have 100%, women and other men, I want to point that out, too, have historically like done this work, but I do think that the game has changed now, so I think we need to change with the game.
And the irony of it all is that this work is detailed in feminist scholars' writings. Like it's like that's where it is, and you can see it. And feminism has always been doing this for men, and that's what's so frustrating about this, because I recognize that like as soon as you use the word feminism, these guys are out. Like they don't want to listen. They're like, oh no, feminism. Like they hate men, and it goes back to that TikTok that you sent along, Eddie. The cultural hegemony. Like obviously, it's talking about it from like a capitalist perspective, but of course, all of those things are intertwined. This whole idea that the people in power who have the power create this idea of like a culture of common sense that benefits them. And I think that it goes back to that. It goes back to this idea because like there are so many ways that we're not talking about men, but there are so many ways that we are. There's so many ways that we're focused on men, and there are so many, like you were saying, decades and decades and decades of like women doing that work, of women making that space tirelessly, constantly, and guys continuing to turn away. And I think that it's where we're going to see the shift, I hope, is creating an idea of masculinity, like an idea of manhood that involves admitting when you're wrong, that involves listening to other people. Like you have to write into what it is to be a man. You have to smash the barriers that are stopping guys. Yeah, like you have to stop guys from this idea that like misogyny is integral to manhood, that being really self-assured is integral to manhood. You have to get rid of those things. It's like, I mean, I know FD Signifier has talked about it before, that he's had guys be like, well, I really love your channel, I really love your advice, but like, could you maybe just like be shittier to women? I'd find it like more admirable if you were just like worse.
You
like
could just add some more hating bitches into this. It would just really make everything pop a lot more. We just need some seasoning on this.
Just add a rap song to the beginning, you know what I mean? Like this, I don't know. Some 8-Ball and MJG at the front of it would really set this channel off, buddy. Let me tell you.
Let's go. I think I disagree. I think I disagree a little bit with, and I don't want to spend much time on this because I want to focus on the productive part of where I do agree. But I think there's a difference between saying that the theoretical framework for helping men exists strongly in feminist literature. I think that there's a lot of truth to that. I think there's a big difference between saying that and claiming that a movement that has had some amount of like push or power has existed for a substantial amount of time. I think that those things aren't exactly the same. But before I even get like y'all's pushback on that, I think the thing that I would agree on is I don't even think we need to make it about like, can we get women and non-men to like ride for men in this conversation? Like, I don't even think that's necessarily the starting point. I think we got to show up for men, which is like, can we together take critical analysis and figure out ways to make a masculinity that can integrate with non-masculinity, that can integrate with women, with non-men, and us do that work. Like, nobody cares about men? Cool, let's start doing that. Let's not, like, the beginning of that conversation is not how can women, even if women participate in it in romantic relationships and heteronormative relationships, cool, let's start it here. Like, that's what I always try and just, as best as I can, be, like, in friendships and shit, like, immediately start with like, how can I be there for the homies? How can I be emotionally supportive? How can I even, like, sometimes even to a cartoonish extent of like just double, triple checking where possible. Still improvements to be had, but that's where it starts. So we don't even have the conversation about what's women's role.
I think my issue with that is not, and the reason why I frame it with women is because that's often the framework. But even in the framework of like nobody's there for men, I think my biggest issue is that like, that is not true historically. People are there for men. If we want to put it in the context of women, there's ample evidence to say there's ample evidence to say. Again, I just gave you examples.
All of those felt
but
very,
like,
yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I get you. We can still disagree because like even like being there for somebody is like subjective. You know what I mean? So I 100% am open to like disagreement with that. But like, this whole where I find disagreement with what you said is like nobody's there for men. I think people have been there for men. I think men have like scorned a lot of really valid like critique and criticism due to not being open, due to the fact, much as like Fantastic Mr. Fox said, like there's just these ideas of masculinity that like you have to 100% be self-assured all the time and you can't acknowledge that you're wrong. And I think a lot of that has roots in the patriarchy. But where I find solidarity with you is that, like, I think if I'm saying that men aren't there for themselves, how can we get men to be there for themselves? Because that's ultimately what I think it is. I think men are not there for themselves. So how can we help men and guide men along being there for themselves? Because people have been there for men. If we talk to some motherfuckers like off the internet, on like who's been the most like integral part of their lives. They got somebody that's been there for them, whether it's been a friend, whether it's been a sister, whether it's been a mother, whether it's
they're
been a grandma.
enough.
Like,
Nah, hold on. Now we're bullshitting. Sorry. Like, let's get into some disagreement here, because I think integral to some of the things that
we're going to disagree.
Yeah, no, for sure. Some of the things that were integral to Finn's point is that I don't think we have historically ever fully recognized men as emotionally full beings who are capable of vulnerability and who need emotional support. There's lots of reasons that are the fault of men. Like, there are ways that, like how you were talking about, men's anger can be so dysregulated and so scary that people don't want to touch it. And for good reason, it can be dangerous, but it extends far beyond that. I think there are so many people who, mothers to their sons, parents to their sons, people in relationships where they do not provide space for men to exist as anything other than emotionally amputated humans. And I think that's always been the case. And it has almost never not been the case. So I got to call big cap on unless I'm misunderstanding parts of what you mean. Yeah.
So what I'm saying is, like, that may be like a societal standpoint. It's somebody in your life that's allows you to like cry on their shoulder.
Okay. Then let me make a distinction in what I was saying, because maybe what we're saying isn't incompatible with one another. I'm not saying, and I don't think anybody is saying, like, no one is ever there for any men. I think the point is more so that the minimum standard for a group being emotionally supported in the way that we should hope for people of all gender, let's say, for instance, women, to be supported, has not been extended to men and should be. Among ourselves first is part of my point.
I think that's fair, and I think that a lot of that is due to blocking, not solely or even predominantly due to societal like factors impressed upon men. I think some of it is like men doing it to themselves, and that's why I think that where I find solidarity is, how can we get men to be there for themselves?
I would only just say that, like, men are not genetically out of the womb emotionally mutilated. That's a thing that happens through socialization. So I think you can't draw a clean line between what society does and what men do to themselves.
That's fair. I mean, but that in and of itself gets complicated. I mean, I pulled up a shit ton of studies for this, but
yeah. Okay, fair. Yeah.
That in and of itself gets complicated.
Yeah. Well,
I definitely.
Nope. Hey, you said definitely. That sounds like you was about to say something good. Go.
Alvin is 100% correct. Like, both of y'all are very correct. I think y'all came to like a pretty good mutual ground on that, because for one, men, we have to start with ourselves, and men need to make it perfectly acceptable to express your full range of emotions, and also provide support and guidance and tutelage and mentorship through that to young men, or even as fucking grown men who, might be a little bit late in the game, you know what I mean? But
Absolutely.
we have to be there for each other in a very positive, healthy way first, and then that's where Alvin was kind of getting at. Well, Eddie was getting at in terms of like the socialization, because it's not like that. Like, you'll get clowned, you'll get joned on, you'll get roasted, or just like it's just not
You
acceptable.
have to survive. Yeah.
Yeah, you have to survive. Like, you got to be tough. Like, don't nobody want to see that shit. Like, don't nobody want to see you crying. Like, don't nobody want to see you being weak. Don't nobody want to see you goddamn, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, not standing up for yourself.
Shit. All right.
Yeah,
Sorry,
like,
guys. Ugh,
And then when you think of how the women react to that, because they are being brought up in the same toxic ass environment
they
that
live
we
in
are.
the same world as us. Yeah.
In the same houses, they being brought up in the same houses. You know what I'm saying? So they learning the same shit. And it's just, I think that notion of when men outwardly say this, and it's a cry for help, it's a legit cry for help when they say, no one gives a fuck about men. It's because, societally speaking, motherfuckers don't really give a fuck about what you got going on. But like Alvin said, of course you got people that you can lean on, but it's not something societally, it's not just acceptable to just go outside and just be crying and you like have somebody like, hey buddy, what's going on?
good?
Like, no, you're good enough. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's not gonna happen. Like, so yeah, at the end of the day, we got to drink that good old fight milk and come together.
Oh, okay. What is fight
Yeah.
milk?
Always Sunny in Philadelphia reference.
I thought, okay, see, because I thought it sounded like, I thought it was, but then I was like, that also sounds like a real thing. Like that sounds like something a podcast would be
be.
sponsored by. That was the one where they had the
This is actually an ad read. This is actually an ad read.
waving the red flag, sponsored by Fight Milk. Put it in your mouth.
Seamless transition.
Oh shit! Yeah, we definitely got to get some sponsors. Okay, I think we'll close it out here. Any closing remarks, Finn, or any ideas you'd like to share before I go into my exceptional outro?
Only because I like made a little short specifically about it today. I think like some of what was being described here, I was referring to it, for lack of a better description, as men get a lot of quantitative attention. They don't get a lot of qualitative attention.
Okay.
And so people who aren't men see men getting lots of attention, and they're like, why do you have these problems? You've got all of this attention, but guys aren't necessarily getting the quality of attention that they need, and they don't have the language to ask for it or describe it. And I think that what's frustrating is this idea of like being a man and masculinity and what that looks like impairs the ability to recognize quality attention. It impairs the ability to acknowledge those things. And I think, you know, some of what Alvin was describing, these examples that we have are women saying, try this. This is what you need. And because it's at conflict with being a man, guys have been like, nah, I'm good. None for me, thanks.
Can't do
It's kind of what I was getting from that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you just fucked Alvin's whole world up. I seen this man's whole mind explode just then. Yeah, and I like that. I like that a lot because it does feel like.
Are you muted, Alvin?
Oh wait, is he?
Maybe.
Oh no,
okay.
yeah.
I can hear you.
But no,
Your mouth-
I was just saying that was very good. That was very good. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was a lot to think about.
Because it does feel like a bit of a catch-22 that men are in this position where they are not well equipped to be able to properly articulate their like the nature of what's going on, what they need, why it's different than what is being given to them, etc. And they end up articulating it in ways that sound a lot like not like dangerous nonsense. And then so it's like you're in it's like you're in this weird conversation where you're needing the other person to, like, the person that's meant to be listening to you also kind of has to have talk for you because you don't even understand what the fuck you're trying to say. And I feel like a lot of men don't even understand. Well, they have a feeling, but they have no idea how to even say what the fuck they're even talking about. So other people have to do all of this heavy emotional lifting and labor, which is to Alvin's point, to even start the fucking conversation, which is very frustrating and exhausting. It's, dare I say, honestly, if you're looking for that, you may be waving a red flag. But at the same time, if you're Batman, you know, out on the hunt, somebody's trying to fuck you, might be you just waving a red flag because you're not into that. You know what I mean? That's what it is. That was pretty good. That's pretty good. It's been Waving the Red Flag podcast. It's been Eddie, Alvin, Josh, fantastic Mr. Fox. Join us on Patreon. Subscribe, like, turn on the bell so you get the notification. And where can the people find you, Mr. Fox?
Yeah. So I used to be on Twitter, but I'm not anymore.
I saw. Yeah,
Mostly,
you just abandoned us, bro.
I did. I just disappeared mid.
You did kind of announce. You announced it with a tweet. I saw that.
That's true. Yeah.
Oh, the way
yeah,
he said
I'm,
it was just like, yo, he got ran out of Twitter or some shit. Like they just banned his account or something. It's like I used to be on Twitter, but they weren't ready for the truth. You know?
Oh man.
The things I could say.
Say 'em.
Sticking
This
to
the
YouTube
place.
these days. I'm not ready. I'm not ready to start. I need to drink more fight milk before I take Elon
okay.
on.
Got it. Okay.
Only because of financial barriers. I think like, you know, physically I've probably got the edge, but
You can
but
fuck
these
'em up.
days
Okay.
you can find me on YouTube, Fantastic Mr. Fox, where I talk about masculinity, gender things. For whatever reason, my most recent video was more on stoicism, so, you know, check it out if that's your thing.
Yeah, people love the stoic shit. I
good
do
stuff.
think
They
that
love
is
Alvin.
that's why that's why the people love Alvin. You know what I'm saying? What does
one
he
of the
feel?
reasons.
What does he think? We have to know. We love him.
Anytime he talks, though.
Will you love us, Alvin?
Anytime he talks, it's so good, so straightforward, factual, feministic.
It's powerful,
I,
strong.
I am a
no
radical
playtime.
feminist. That's my character on this podcast.
Yeah, you have been characterized as such. Yeah, I do think I find stoicism as part of a masculine. Yeah, I wonder if maybe I shouldn't, but I think that definitely is part of like what I imagine is part of masculinity. You know?
Yeah.
You're gonna get me talking again, and we're trying to wrap things up, but you're gonna get me talking again.
That's all right. This is just gonna be going over the credits.
Stoicism involves a lot of recognition of emotion. That's like at its core.
Okay.
You have to recognize the emotions if you're going to let them go. Right?
How
Justin,
you feel about that, Alvin? How you feel about that one?
So I actually read
Actually, I have a
I'm
study
talking
to.
no a study to support it. So like it's actually like
I know.
something that kind of flies in the face of like conventional logic, which was that
Self-perception.
psychopaths don't have an understanding of emotion, but they were like if they have to navigate a place where they're being manipulative of people's emotions, they have to have a profound understanding of emotion. Is effectively what like the study was doing, and I immediately read that and was like, Eddie, the motherfucker understands.
God damn it!
Absolutely.
He got to because I was finna say and you related to it, but you got me before I got you. Well
was
done,
good.
well done,
That was
sir.
good.
That was perfect timing, actually. And I read that and I thought to myself, with no pause, Edward.
I got him. We got him, ladies and gentlemen. We caught him red-handed.
Oh shit! It seems like with psychopaths though, you have to like, do they, based on your understanding, have like an understanding of the internal world, or are they just responding to the outside expression of other people's emotions?
The latter more so than the former.
Yeah. Okay. True. All right. Well, that's been the pod. All right. Cool. Let's stop these
yo,
recordings.
no, brother.
Oh wait. Oh, what'd I forget?
Cop the merch.
Cop them. Yeah. Yes.
We got a whole store, loaded broccoli.
See what they. You know what I'm saying? Come on. Push them together. There we go. Yeah. There we go. That's hot stuff. Look at that. Yeah, baby.
It's loaded broccoli, baby.
Give it to them.
What it is, you want to be the healthy option while also providing that spice, that excitement for your partner. Just don't just be broccoli and don't be loaded French fries. You can marry the two. You can be a
Fiber,
nuanced, healthy
nutrients,
partner.
Seasoning,
Seasoning.
healthy fats. You can be all of those things
All of that. And
by being loaded
provide,
broccoli.
spice up your loved one's lives, baby.
Link in the bio. You know what I'm saying? Use discount code Fight Milk for 10% off on the loaded broccoli hoodie.
There's no discount code as of yet, but if you
That's not real. That's not real.
that's not real. Full retail.
Okay, I'm gonna stop the recording now.